It's the weekend and you have financial questions that need answering. That can only mean one thing. It's time for Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome, welcome. It is the middle of July, Wimbledon final weekend. Mark's excited. Mark, did you watch the women's soccer or no? Yeah, he watched it. So that's good. I didn't watch it. I was like in transit and never got to the very end. It was terrible. All right, let's get this going here. Come on now. It is Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank Studios. Isn't that great? Here in New York, where it's finally summer, which is fantastic. Summer, not my favorite season. Yeah, Mark's given the big thumbs down to summer. How's Theo liking summer? Yeah, he's not leaving his air-conditioned, beautiful room. Mark finally admitted 4 weeks into the mission of fatherhood that maybe he wasn't sleeping that much. Maybe. One bad night, that's it. All right, that's not so bad when you think about it. Anyway, if you've got a financial question or some advice for the new father, do give us a shout. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com, askjill@jillonmoney.com. And you can always reach us also through our website, jillonmoney.com. We have a little contact us button. Makes it very easy. So first up on the program, it's Mr. Bill in Illinois. Hi, Bill. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Jill. How are you?
Fantastic. What can we do for you?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out if a person how he can figure Social Security as part of your fixed income portion of your equity.
That's
not of your equity, but of your
of your whole asset allocation, basically.
Asset allocation, yes.
Interesting. Well, I look at it, instead of looking at it as part of fixed income, I look at it as part of cash flow. So I always think of it like this. I say, okay, let's look at your retirement income. So in your case, tell me about what's going on for you, and are you already retired or contemplating retirement?
I just retired here a couple months ago.
Oh, great.
I actually signed up for Social Security in January.
Mm-hmm.
I'm full retirement age, 66.
Uh-huh. And how much is your Social Security benefit?
Currently, it's approximately just short of $27,000.
Okay. And any other income that you're receiving in retirement?
No. I've got, a child still in high school, so I am eligible for an additional $1,100 a month, but that's only for 2 more years, and then that'll drop off.
Got it.
So we're trying to save that for, his college education.
Oh, great. That's kind of good. Built-in savings, right?
Yeah, we're just trying to bank all that as much as we can. I'm sure there's expenses and things like that come up, like braces and.
I know, things like just parenting. So tell me about. Are you married?
Yes, I am.
And does your spouse work?
She works, yes.
And how much does she earn?
I don't know exactly. Probably $16,000 to $17,000 a year.
Okay, great. And if you look at Social Security, just the retirement benefit plus her income, that's a decent amount of money. Do you need more than that? Like, what do we need to get you in terms of your retirement? Let's call it your retirement income, but like total income for the family. What do you need?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I've never put a piece of paper and a pencil together to figure it out.
Okay, so this is going to be your little Jill on Money homework. I'll tell you why. Because this is really what when people get freaked out about retirement, this is the part that they don't do, which is really the most helpful way for you to figure things out. So what I want you to figure out is this. You say to yourself, okay, here's the income we have, right? We have this 40 some odd $1,000 a year, some from your Social Security, some from her income. Now, what is it that we need? Guys own a home?
Pardon?
Do you own a home?
Yes, it's paid for. Yes.
Okay. And so you look at your basic bills and you say, okay, well, here's my taxes, my property taxes, and my homeowner's insurance, and here's how much we generally spend on food and vacation and this, that, and you get some number. Let's just pretend. I'll make up a number for you, okay? Let's say that you need 60 grand a year. It's like your basics, okay? And I now did my math and I said, oh, you guys are generating right now $43,000 a year, right? Her income plus your Social Security. Again, I'm not considering that $1,100 a month for your kid. Okay, so now what you need to figure out is, okay, I'm bringing in 43. I need 60. Again, my made up number. What do I need to do to generate the $17,000 a year more that I need? Then you look at your portfolio. So let's talk about the money that you have in savings and retirement accounts and all that stuff. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, in taxable equities, I've got approximately $330,000.
Okay.
In tax sheltered equities, I've got about $980,000.
Great.
In fixed income, that is, let's see, this would be taxable. I've got approximately $230,000.
Okay.
And on the tax shelter side of the fixed income, I've got approximately $70,000.
Okay. Great. This is great. This is all good news. And that's the total assets. You do have a bunch of money. So you're ready for your big good news, your headline good news, which is if we add up all of the money that you have saved, you have something like $1.6 million, right? And if I just took a very, very conservative amount of money, you're going to generate. So the way you look at this, you might say 1.6 million. You say, okay, if I pulled out 3% a year, what would that be? 48 grand. So I would be able to then, you could basically know that you could pull out 40, 50 grand a year from your portfolio to beef up whatever spending you need. Now, the problem that we don't know for you, Bill, is that we don't know how much you really need. But even if you just said, well, I've got 43 right now in income, right? And I need another 40, I can get another 48. You can basically, if you tell me I can live on $90, $75, $80, $90,000 a year, you're golden. Your retirement savings, your total savings will be able to take you there. And that is something that most people don't have that comfort. So that's your sort of big picture good news. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about how you may want to shift some of the allocation so it's not so heavily invested in stocks. That's our next step, all right? So Bill in Illinois, stand by. We're doing your retirement planning here on the radio. Fantastic. It's Jill on Money. Hey, during the break, go to the website, jillonmoney.com, and buy my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You're back. It's Jill on Money, and this is the program that takes your financial life, dismantles it, and puts it all back together again. That's what we're doing with Bill from Illinois. Before we went to the break, he was telling us about his retirement portfolio. He retired a couple months ago. He's got about $1.6 million saved, which is amazing. And you see, Bill, you called me with one question that seemed so straightforward and easy, and now I've made it a lot more complicated. I'm sorry for that. But, so I hear your question is, can I count Social Security as fixed income? And as you can see with the way I approach retirement, I don't think you need to do that. I think what you need to do is say, that's my income, And then we need to figure out what your expenses are. And then we need to figure out how we generate income from your portfolio to bridge the gap between what you're bringing in and what you need. Okay? Now,
Okay.
in your estimation, since we have no idea about what you spend, what did you make before you retired? What were you earning? Let's try to do it that way. Let's do a ballpark.
Oh gosh, it would vary so much. Sometimes, Jill, sometimes it'd be $70,000, $80,000 in income, and sometimes it'd be 35.
Okay. So if I said, so interesting, I think you're going to be fine. I think that, all right, if you really hate the idea of trying to figure out how much money you need in retirement, based on what you just said, I think you'll be fine because you've put away a lot of money for retirement. As I said, $1.6 million, some of it is tax sheltered, so you're going to have to pay tax on it, right? But
Right.
you're in really good shape. I guess that what I'm guessing, the reason you called me is that you really have a little over $1 million. Rather, I'm sorry, you have you're a little heavy on the equity side. So you've got like 1.3 in equities and only 300 grand in the fixed income. And so you want to basically know, can I count my Social Security as fixed income? And I can come back to you and say, no need to do that. Why don't you just shift some of the money? I don't think you need to change any of your allocation in a taxable account because I don't want to cause a tax liability. But you said you had $980,000 in stocks in a tax-sheltered environment, right? Where is that account right now? Is that with your old employer? Is that your own? Where is that?
That's my own. It's in various mutual fund companies.
Okay. So first of all, what I would do is I would make sure that you look through there and said, hey, what is it that I really you want to try to, I presume, get to a more of a balanced portfolio, right?
Right.
Okay. So if you want it to be, you're still pretty young guy. So, if you want it to be a balanced investor, maybe not even 50-50. Let's say you say 60-40 in equities to stocks, to bonds. And what I would do is I'd look at that tax sheltered account and I would look at the funds that are performing well. And I would say, is there some reason that I'm in one versus another? And I would just try to make this easy for yourself. Are you using managed mutual funds or using index funds?
Most of them are index funds, the bulk of it.
Okay, great. So anything that's managed, I would just get out of, and then I'd roll it into just find a bond fund, a bond index, and use that as your holding for the for the fixed portion of your portfolio. So, I don't think you have to go nuts here. Again, we would like to peel the risk back, but really you're just looking for maybe an intermediate term bond fund to pop some money into if you are really capable of holding the risk. In other words, if you say to me, I really am fine. I don't mind when markets go down. I think you might mind when you're retired, but maybe you really have iron guts. Then, you could say 65 in equities, 35 bonds. But I'd like you to get down to an amount in your equity portfolio where the volatility won't drive you crazy. Because, markets are good, but they could just turn on you, and you don't want to do that. And then I would just roll that money that is already, basically all you have to do is say, I'm not going to take I'm not taking the money out, but I am going to put some of the money in a bond fund. And that's how I would manage the risk in the portfolio. I wouldn't look to consider my Social Security a fixed income investment, even though I know on some level it is.
Yeah, it's sometimes it seems like when you look at, I know I'm too heavy in stocks, that fixed income, and I'm just, I just kind of justify my being overweighted such as looking at that Social Security like that. But
Yep.
I kind of got a plan that I'm going to have to start pulling out of the tax sheltered accounts in the equities.
Yep.
And start going to fixed,
Yeah. And you know what? You don't have to do it all at once. You can kind of you might say, I'm going to dollar cost average, right? You might say, you know what I'm going to do? I ideally want to say, all right, let's make this up, okay? Let's say you ideally want to have $1 million in equities and the rest in bonds, okay? And you can say, great, I am going to take some money every month to get me there. And maybe you want to do it by the end of this year. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But I think it is imperative that you do something, because when all of a sudden you're negotiating with yourself about a portfolio, that's usually when something bad happens. You know what I mean? Like, you're sort of like, well, it's not so bad because I have this. It's almost better to say, what's the point here? Because even if you saw the market rise for, let's say, 2 more years, so you'd still have exposure to the stock market. Who cares? And you've got so much money saved that you're really just saying, I am choosing to forego some of my upside in order to protect my downside. That's the smart and prudent thing to do for me and my family. And I think that that's really how you have to look at it.
Okay.
Makes sense?
That's kind of how I looked at it, and kind of realized how I could do it with, in the tax sheltered plans.
Yep. Absolutely. And of course, using an index fund makes it so much easier. If you do have any of those managed funds, those would be the ones I'd look to first to get out of, just to save you the money. And in terms of the saving for college, having $1,100 a month getting socked aside will do it. Is there other money that you have for education?
Yes, I've got other money set aside for education.
Great. Perfect. And you got your estate planning done. Now you got all this free time. I'm giving you all this homework. Have you refreshed those wills and powers of attorney and healthcare proxy? Have you done that?
We went through that here about a year and a half,
Great.
2 years ago.
You are fantastic. You are in great shape. So just let's get that allocation in line, collect that Social Security, and let's keep your wife working. That's also helping.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
All right. Take care. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, boy. That's so great. It's funny. I do think that when we start to have that bargaining kind of conversation in our heads, that's really when things can go awry. You've had it before. Hey, Mark, what'd you do with your Bitcoin, by the way? So I'm having this fight with Mark because he and his lovely decided that they wanted to go into the Bitcoin. And so what was your entry point about? Okay, so he buys it at about 10,000, rides it up, then it plummets. And it went down to 3? Okay, you sold it at 3? Okay, so he took a loss at 3 for part of it. Okay, so he takes that tax loss. Smart, you got to take the tax loss, is great. Holds on to a portion of it. And then what does it have to be at to get completely neutral? In other words, loss against gain. Didn't have to get to 12-ish? 12 or 13. So I go away for work and I see Bitcoin pops up to 15 while I'm away. So I send him a text immediately. I think I was on the plane on my way to Portland. And I say to him, did you sell the Bitcoin? And you know what he says? No, not yet. So it was at 15, wasn't it? A hair below 15. Now the gosh darn Bitcoin's back at like 12.3, 12.4, and he doesn't do anything. See how he bargained with himself? All he had to do was get to 13 the first time, get out, be done. Nope. Greedy. Greedy! Don't be greedy. Fear and greed, those are your only 2 emotions in investing, my friends. Got to guard against both. It's Jill on Money. We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Back to Jill on Money, where Jill Schlesinger helps you take the mystery out of your finances.
You are back. It's Jill on Money. I know it's summer. I know you don't want to really think about what's going on in your life financially, but sometimes when you have a little random time off, little thought bubbles in your head. So, hey, if you've got one of those thought bubbles and you need some help on an issue, why don't you shoot us an email? That email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Jim writes that he and his wife are 54 years old and they want They want to retire. And he says, I think we have enough saved. My issue is I've never found an investment professional that I trust to put all of my cards on the table and to bare my soul, so to speak. Can you help? He wants to know if they have enough already, enough saved. Look, there's a few different things to consider. Have you run through your scenarios yourself? That's a good question. Maybe you want to get your sort of your first level of confirmation. Why not go over and pay for some software? I don't get anything out of this, guys. I just find this, I think this software is pretty cool. It's called ES Planner, esplanner.com. They have an individual software component, and they have one that has some simulations and this, but like even just the ES Planner, very good. They also have one-on-one service for those who want someone to check inputs. So I think this could be possible as like a way to kind of bare your soul, or as they say on Wall Street sometimes, open the kimono. That seems like a weird way to say it, but anyway, check that out. Now, once you do that, and if you don't feel enough comfort there, then I would turn to somebody who you could pay by the hour, who would not sell you anything, to test the results. And that kind of a person you could find at NAPFA, National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, NAPFA, NAPFA.org. That's what I try to do, Jim. And hopefully that'll get you where you want to go. Okay, here we have Steve in Silicon Valley. And he said he listens to us at KSFO in the Bay Area. And he wanted to know about charitable contributions from the required minimum distribution and how you report this. He said that how is this recorded on IRS forms? Okay, so the big question is, how is a QCD recorded? You will get tax forms for your retirement contributions and QCD reporting. I think the QCD reporting is on a 1099. Is it a 1099 or a 1099-R? I think it's an R. Hold on, I'm going to look this up on the IRS. Go to irs.gov, and then you can find this. So stand by. I'm looking. This is very good. I got it right here. So qualified charitable distributions, if you search on this, charitable distributions are reported on Form 1099-R for the calendar year the distribution is made. And so here's how it works. To report it, you report the full amount of the charitable distribution on the line for IRA distributions. On the line for the taxable amount, enter 0 if the full amount was a qualified charitable distribution. Enter QCD next to this line. Then you must also file Form 8606, non-deductible IRAs, if you made the qualified charitable distribution from a traditional IRA in which you had basis and received a distribution from the IRA during the same year, other than the qualified distribution. Meanwhile, did you take some other money out? So just if you've got questions about QCDs, go literally search irs.gov QCD, step by step. I'm telling you, gang, if you want to see tax dollars working on your behalf, that IRS website is amazing. Chris from New York writes that I love Roth IRAs. I think they're great. I recommend them to all of my young family members. I keep hearing on so many financial shows to just invest in Roth IRAs. My understanding is that there are rules involved with Roths. Some are you can't make over 70 grand if your company offers you can you review the rules for a Roth? Yes, I would be happy to review the rules for a Roth. Roth contributions are, in fact, limited by income. So if you want to make a Roth IRA contribution in 2019 and you are single, you can make less than $122,000. Now, you could make a partial contribution all the way up to income of $137,000 as an individual. For married filing jointly, the range is $193,000 or less. You can make an IRA contribution, a Roth IRA contribution, Sorry, that's fine. $6,000. If you make more than $203,000, then you cannot make a contribution into a Roth IRA. Those are the rules. Okay? It's not that if your company offers a 401k, you're not eligible. There are some rules around IRAs and the deductibility of IRAs if you actually have a company plan. But Roth IRAs, not subject to that rule. Okay, Chris? I hope that helps. Okay. I did a presentation down in D.C. over the spring to the American Association of Individual Investors. And here's a nice comment from Jean, who said, "Thank you for the informative, entertaining discussion. I am one of those fee-only CFP CPAs you referred to. I picked up a lot of useful information for me and my clients. I love that you sometimes emphasize renting as superior to owning a residence. One thing you might want to add, this is particularly important concerning the financial aspects when a senior is downsizing. Too many people reflexively buy a condo without realizing that it's usually more expensive than renting." I couldn't agree more. More importantly, many seniors will not live in their condos or single-family homes long enough to benefit significantly from what has been the principal reason for home ownership, appreciation. The eventual sales commission is going to eat up a significant portion of that appreciation. Regards, Jean. Isn't that cool? I love it. Thank you very much, Jean. All right, when we return, we will be answering more of your questions. During the break, hop on to JillOnMoney.com. There you can read some of the columns that I've written, and you can watch some recent TV segments. Check it out, JillOnMoney.com. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You're back. It is Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd really love to hear from you. Yeah, it'd be so much fun. Ask Jill at JillOnMoney.com. That is the email address. All right, let us get to some more emails. This is from Sven, who used to live in the United States. He's relocated permanently to Europe. 56 years old, he's married. He says, no debt outstanding. He says, my Social Security at age 62 will be about $1,750. I've got $525,000 in a 401k, $60,000 in a traditional IRA, $80,000 in cash, and I just sold a holiday home, no mortgage, $400,000. So there, that's good. They get that working for you. Here's the fly in the ointment. My monthly expenses are about $4,000 a month. What can you suggest that I do to live on this for the rest of my life, if at all even possible? Answer: you can't do that. You're too young. You got too much time. So here is back of the envelope. First of all, you definitely have to work until you can collect Social Security. You're just not going to make it work. You got about $985,000. I don't count the cash. So let's just call it $1 million. You can generate about $30,000, maybe $35,000 long term. But, that is not a good plan for you. You're going to run through this money in no time. So here's my suggestion. Go get a job. Go get a job and support yourself. Or you and your wife, between the two of you, get a couple of part-time jobs. Do not dip into this money. And if at all possible, the way I think it could work is if you wait until your full retirement age, not till 62. I mean, look, if you start working in Europe, are you like building into a safety net there? Time to get a job, man. I'm sorry. I know you wanted to work otherwise. Not happening. Not in a way that I think is going to be smart for you. Okay. Here's a question from Tim. We recently discovered the Jill on Money podcast. We listen often. We also watch you regularly on CBS News, covering some very interesting topics. My wife is 58. I am 60. We are enjoying freedom. We don't call it retirement. I like that too. As we see it, there are two parts of freedom planning. First, I like that reframing. You like that, Mark? Not retirement, freedom. Freedom. I bet you can't sing the song Freedom from the show Shenandoah, Mark. I'm sure you can't. No, I didn't think so. I won't sing it to you, but anyway, let's get back to this. As we see it, there are two parts of freedom planning. First, all the years of saving and investing, discipline, compound interest. Then the second half, time after the big decision to leave our jobs and enjoy our freedom, to manage our budget, to manage planned withdrawals, and consider tax impacts. We currently have more than 3/4 of our money in tax-deferred account, traditional IRAs. Let me do that. It's one long sentence. So most of their money is in traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks. We are worried about the future tax impact, especially when we have to take required minimum distributions. As background, in addition to Social Security that we plan to wait on to collect until our full retirement age or older, my wife will receive a small pension. Our question. We are thinking it might be a good move to do Roth IRA conversions now and in the next few years, and then pay the likely lower taxes instead of the very likely higher rates in the future. What do you think, Jill? We look forward to your reply, and thank you all in caps, many exclamation points. I like this idea. Everyone who's listening to the show knows that I share the Ed Slott belief that tax rates are likely to rise in the future. So I think for just purely knowing that certitude of what your tax liability is can be very helpful. Also, as you note, Tim, that if you convert now, then you don't have to take as much later, especially if you have a lot of money and that, 10 years from now, that'll be even more money, and that all of that will be subject to minimum required distribution. So I like the idea. Let's go. Let's get it. Good for you. Antoinette is 64, 300 grand taxable. This is interesting. She says it's taxable money in a thrift savings plan. I'm thinking you might have meant tax deferred. So a thrift savings plan, which is a government retirement plan, is usually a pre-tax plan. So I'm just going to assume, if I get this wrong, follow up with me, Antoinette. Antoinette says, I have not begun withdrawing the money yet. I'm going to have to soon. What would you do with the money if it were your main source of income for the remainder of your life? Monthly bills, $2,600. $1,100 from Social Security, pension of $1,500. So pre-tax, right? So think about this. So she's got $1,100. She basically has the $2,600 pre-tax, but her bills are $2,600. She's going to be having to dip into this into this money. So I think that the most important thing to consider here, Antoinette, is to keep a chunk of money liquid. So I don't know how it's invested in the TSP, but whatever you think you're going to need, maybe it's an extra $5,000 a year, $6,000, maybe it's $500 a month. Make sure that that's liquid. I would keep 2 years worth. That's safe and liquid. And maybe you just leave it in the thrift savings plan and just make sure money that you're going to need within the next year or two inside of that thrift savings plan stays liquid. Okay? Good luck. Oh, it's so much fun. Lots of retirement questions. Very interesting. Love to hear from you. Maybe it's an education funding question. Maybe it's a tax question. Any other question on your mind? Real estate? Let us know. Okay, you're listening to Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back. You are back. It's Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Capital One Bank studios here in New York. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Our email address is askjill@jillonmoney.com. Haven't gotten a question about this in a while. Subject is reverse mortgages. Message is, this came from our website, so that's why I get it like that. I like it. Okay. By the way, if you're on the website, jillonmoney.com, top right corner, contact us. Boom. You can send us an email right from the website itself. Okay. Chris writes, my husband is intent on pursuing a reverse mortgage on our home so that we can use the equity as part of our retirement. We have no children, no one to leave our money to. I am skeptical, and I would like your thoughts and references that you can lead us to so that we can make this decision properly. Thanks, Chris. Okay, Chris. First of all, first thing to know is that reverse mortgages, they are pretty thorny. What I would do is, number one, go buy my book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money. I have a whole section on reverse mortgages. But if you don't feel like splurging on that $25 purchase, what I would do is I would get somebody who can give you an unbiased opinion about a reverse mortgage. And that could be a fee-only or fiduciary financial advisor, someone you could pay by the hour to just look at your retirement scenarios and see whether a reverse mortgage is the smartest decision for you. It could be. It's just that I don't know. It would really be predicated on all the other things going on in your financial life. And, as I write in the book, the thing about reverse mortgages is that they are very complicated. Very complicated. So getting help is really, really going to be kind of critical for you. All right. It's the end of the hour. So exciting. But there's a whole nother hour to go. During the break, why don't you go over to JillOnMoney.com and you, like Chris, can go buy the book, The Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, 13 Ways to Right Your Financial Wrongs. We'll be right back.
It's the weekend, and that can only mean one thing. You're listening to Jill on Money, the show that takes the mystery out of your finances. Here's your host, Jill Schlesinger.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2 of Jill on Money. We are broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Just go to policygenius.com. All right, we always get questions about people who are just starting to invest, and they're often sheepish when they call. And I always feel bad about that because, you know what? Not everybody is taught this or brought up with this. So when we have somebody who can really explain some of the basics, we bring them on the program so that you can listen to someone else's voices rather than mine, because I know it gets a little bit much. So today we have a great guest, Erin Lowry. She's known as the Broke Millennial, and she's got a new book, Broke Millennial Takes On Investing. Here's our interview with Erin Lowry. This is not a book only for millennials.
It's not. It really can be for everyone. It's certainly targeted towards millennials, as I am one of them, and it's definitely my demographic. And I do like to address some millennial pain points, like, hey, I have student loans. Should I be investing while I have student loans?
What's your answer to that?
It depends. Interest rate on your student loans, if they're 5% or higher, maybe we don't invest at the same time, except for into your retirement accounts. Under 5% depends on your risk tolerance and debt tolerance.
So what about the idea of somebody who says, okay, I put up to my match in my retirement accounts, so let's say 6%, and I have these outstanding loans, which are actually more than 5% mostly, the federal loans especially, right? They're in the 6 to 7. What's your advice on that? Should they put extra money into retirement or debt pay down?
To me, it depends, which I know is a very infuriating answer for a lot of people, but it's usually the right answer when it comes to personal finance. It really depends on your short and medium-term goals. I would not be investing for a short-term goal, but if it's a medium-term goal that you might want some money invested in the beginning. But on the flip side, if you're very debt-averse like I am and you want it paid down fast, I totally empathize with that.
I look at it in a slightly different way. Maybe it's because I've gotten my ass handed to me in my life. And I say, if you had, say, a 6.5% student loan, I might suggest to you that it's hard to get a 6.5% return. It is. It's hard to consistently produce that over time. But a 6.5% guaranteed return is pretty awesome. We can't find that anywhere. So I always err on the side of paying down the debt because I'm a wimp.
And no one ever regrets paying off debt quickly. I
No.
think that's the other thing to consider.
Absolutely. What else is specific to the millennials and the specific points that came up after your first book? Obviously, you got feedback, and so you followed up with this book. What else was a pain point for a millennial?
Honestly, it's the language. And that was the big feedback I got. There's a small investing chapter in the first book that really talks a little bit more about retirement than anything else, because that's usually your first point of contact with investing. And at the end of that chapter, I recommended, here are a couple other books that you might want to look into if you're interested in learning about investing. And I started getting emails that said, hey, I'm ready to move on to next phases. I'm ready to invest. And I checked out some of these books and I just don't understand them. And these are books that really are positioned for beginners. And the language that gets used, they're great books, but a lot of times I think people forget that you don't know what an index fund is just off the top of your head. You have to back up.
Now, you also, in this book, turn to a bunch of hack experts, including the one interviewing you right now. So why turn to other people to provide the commentary?
I am not an expert in investing, and I make that very clear in the beginning of the book. I do not have any credentials. I don't have any certifications. I haven't passed any exams.
What about the downside when you talk to millennials is scary to them? Because remember, after the Great Recession and the financial crisis, we were hearing that the millennial generation that came of age specifically at that moment was going to be very wary of investing. What have you found in the people who give you feedback?
I think that's still the case.
Still.
A lot of people still are wary. I think the other really important thing is to reposition how we talk about retirement. And I talk about this a bit in the book, that we say save for retirement, and I would like us to start saying invest for retirement, because people don't recognize themselves as an investor if all they have is a 401k. Language is important, and I think if we have that tiny mental shift, it can also encourage people to be investing in other ways in the future. The other big problem, of course, is student loans, which is why it gets its own chapter in the book. It's really stressful to try to be balancing all these financial priorities in your life. And a lot of people feel like, well, this is something that I can easily just tackle right now. And some people forego putting money away for retirement, investing for retirement, because they're just so focused on the student loan debt.
I think you bring up a really smart point, and that is, if you are being kept up at night by these debt loads, I can understand, especially in your 20s, the feeling like I have just got to get rid of this. What's your feeling about that?
I like to pivot to, if you have a match on a 401k, it's free money. And I know it is like trite and cliche advice at this point, but take the match. And if you can't afford to take the full match, start at 1%. Every 6 months, try to push it up by another 1%.
How do you approach when people go in the other direction, which is, I'm completely immobilized, scared to invest, and yet they seem to be fine buying shares of their own company when maybe they work in a startup? What is it that you find people are missing about that part of it, like the ultra risky, which I guess they don't see as so risky?
They don't, and I definitely try to explain that in the book, that there is a lack of diversification there. If your income is tied to your company and all of your investments are tied to your company and your company goes down, oof, that's going to be a horrible financial situation for you. So it's okay to buy in a little bit, but that can't be exclusively how you're investing. But I would say it's probably because they fundamentally, or at least they fundamentally feel that they understand the product, which makes it a less scary investment in their mind. And maybe they get a deal, and everyone loves a deal.
What do you think is another, like a misconception among millennials when it comes to investing?
Oh, I feel like there are so many of them. Where to even start?
Okay, let's do a more fun. Let's do the top 3 misconceptions about investing. And not all millennials. So if you're listening to this and you're millennial and you're like freaking out, this doesn't have to be you. But generally speaking, Erin's the expert of the millennial generation and investing for this moment. What's the feedback that you get that you think is the misconception?
Well, I'm going to use one of the taglines from the book, and that is time to shake the misconception that investing is just for the wealthy. And that's number one, is people feel like, well, I am just not rich or wealthy enough to be investing in the first place. That's only something that rich people do. False.
Yeah.
Again, coming back to retirement, that is investing. But also, you don't have to have a ton of money in order to get into the market. Another big one is there's a lot of misunderstanding about how you get in, who to trust, where to go in order to invest. And a big one I think that's kind of funny is about robo-advisors.
Oh, so let's talk about that. Do tell.
Well, a lot of people seem to have this it's not an understanding because it's a misconception. A lot of people seem to think that robo-advisors have this magical algorithm that knows how to beat the market and somehow is just going to figure out everything for you. First of all, people are involved in every step of the process. Yes, there are algorithms touching some parts where you're really looking at rebalancing and tax loss harvesting and kind of comparing different products, but people are still involved in all angles. And if the market starts to go down or there's a correction or if we swing into another recession here eventually, the robo-advisor can't just get you out of it. There's not this special algorithm that's going to prevent it. And I interviewed some people that work for robo-advisors, and they all said that they get frantic emails every time that are like, why is mine going down? You're supposed to be able to solve for this. I'm like, no, you don't fundamentally understand what's happening here.
Okay, we'll get back to more of those investment basic beginning steps, beginning blocks. It's Erin Lowry as our guest, and you are listening to Jill on Money. How about you go on to the website, jillonmoney.com, and you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Go get it, jillonmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Do I invest here? Should I put my money there? Jill Schlesinger can help you. Back to Jill on Money.
You are back. It's Jill on Money. If you've got a financial question, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. All right. So, you heard that little intro. The guy says, if you have a question about investing, we always get questions about investing. It seems that investing is so concrete. It's this topic that occupies a lot of our financial headspace because maybe you have a retirement account through work or you hear about it, or people like me go on the air and talk about new records for stock market indexes or something like that. In the real critical aspects of how to become a good investor, there are tried and true parts of the process. And our guest, Erin Lowry, who has just written a new book called Millennial Takes On Investing, is really good at explaining how some of these concepts basically interact with your real life. So here is more of our interview with Erin Lowry. How do you bring this new generation of investors into the right frame of mind about what market returns are all about?
For me, a big part of the conversation is this fundamental understanding that it's going to go down, and you have to be okay with that. And it's up and down. You're going to weather the ups and downs of the market. It's just part of the process. And also, there are very inflammatory headlines in the media that are
those media people
that are completely without real context if you haven't done your research into the market. For example, I remember last year there was a big one about Dow Jones drops 800 points, biggest drop in history. Well, okay, 800 points was certainly the biggest drop, but it wasn't the largest percentage drop that had ever happened. So it's making sure that you also know how to read between the lines on certain things.
So we did misconception 1, and we did misconception 2. What's the third misconception?
I would say that there's a misconception about how early you need to be getting started and that you can't play catch up very easily. So a lot of people will think, hey, I'm 25. Things are pretty tough. Broke millennial status. I was there. I remember. So you feel, well, I'm not so much going to focus on putting money away for retirement or any other sort of investing. I'm just going to focus on the immediate short-term needs. When I'm 35, I'll be making a lot of money. I'll have paid off my loans. I'll be in a better situation. That's when I'll start. So 2 problems with that. 1, even if you double down how much you're investing 10 years later, you're not necessarily going to catch up with yourself if you had started at 25. The other issue is life tends to get more complicated, not easier. So while, yes, you might be making more money, maybe you paid off your student loans, perhaps you got married, maybe you bought a house, maybe you started a family, and all those things cost money. And I think lifestyle inflation in addition to all of this tends to happen too. So while you might have more income, it doesn't mean you still have a lot of money to put into your investments to try to play catch up.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody who said to me, I live paycheck to paycheck, someone here at work. I said, you and your spouse make $260,000 a year together, and you live paycheck to paycheck. She's like, yep. We literally have no money left when we come to the end of the month. And I think that's shocking to people, but it is exactly what you say, this lifestyle creep, this, well, now I have 3 kids and I've got 3 more mouths to feed. And I think what they also mean is when they say paycheck to paycheck, that they're both maxing out their retirement accounts, which is great. But the catch-up part of it, which they thought they would be able to do, not close. I mean, they're barely maxing out. So I think that's a great point. In going through and writing this book, what did you learn that you didn't know before about investing?
Oh, my goodness, a lot. And some of it was terminology. I remember doing an interview at one point, and the interviewee said basis point. And I said, I'm going to stop you right here. I hear that term all the time, and I've never totally understood what people mean. Could you explain it? And it was little things like that and the terminology. And I also found it fascinating to get so many different perspectives on the same topic and how many people had different thresholds for when you should be investing if you have debt or if you should be investing. I also did an interview recently where somebody made the argument that even if you have credit card debt, you should still be investing because of compound interest, which I argued against. But it's interesting how many different ways and perspectives of viewing investing exist.
Did you learn something different about yourself and about how you view investing?
I still cannot bring myself to completely stop investing in a taxable account, even though my husband and I are paying off his student loans. I really thought in the beginning that I was gonna need to focus entirely on his student loan debt. Mm-hmm. And I started writing this book right around the time that we got married, and I inherited, if you will, not really, my name's not legally on anything, but that became a real part of my life. Mm-hmm. And I truly thought, once that happens, I'm just going to want to put every extra dollar towards getting out of that debt as fast as possible. We're going to press pause on investing in taxable accounts. And then it happened. I was like, I got to keep investing. I also bought my first individual stock.
Oh, do tell.
I did it doing research for the book. The plan was basically, hey, this is some speculative money I can afford to lose, but I feel like I should go through the actual experience of doing it in order to also, even just dealing with an interface and seeing what questions I was going to have to ask myself, like stop loss, limit buy, like all those kind of terms. I had no idea what any of it meant.
Where did you do it? Through which organization?
I did it with Charles Schwab.
Okay. So you open up a Schwab account and it's just in your name. Husband's not on it.
Nope.
How did you pick your first stock?
So this is kind of a weird story, and I talk about it a little bit in the book. My dad works in the lithium industry. So I grew up understanding and learning about lithium, the raw material that goes into both cell phone batteries and your antidepressant medication. Real weird product. And it's become a bit of a hot topic lately because of renewable energy and because of batteries and trying to store energy and Tesla and all of that. And I thought, if I can invest in a lithium company, I'm pretty bullish on the future of lithium. So I did some research, and that's what I picked.
Okay. One company?
One company. I just did one company, bought some shares, had a set amount I was willing to put in just to test it out and see what happens.
And so far?
So far, we're doing okay. It was amazing at the beginning.
Oh,
it was
yes, you're like, woo!
Huge,
I'm a
huge
genius.
bull run. And then not as much.
So
but I'm still up.
Okay. So after having this experience, which is what, a year-ish?
It's been about a year and a half.
Okay. Do you wish you had done something different, like take some of the money off the table? Did you wish that you had said, let me put a limit order in that if I buy it at 10 and it gets to 15, I'll sell half of it? Did you have any of that? In retrospect, do you wish you had done that?
In retrospect, after seeing where it was kind of peaking in the run, if I had cashed out, that would be another student loan payment done.
Oh, so have you changed any of your approach to the stock itself? In other words, have you put a limit on it? So a limit is, for everyone listening, a limit is you pick a point on the upside or the downside where you say, if it gets to this point, sell this position, sell a portion of this position. Will you put a limit on this now?
I'm not going to. I'm still kind of value investor about it. And it was a buy and hold strategy, even though it was an individual stock. So I kind of mentally earmarked it for a few years to see how it goes. And I would say if in 2 years it's underperforming, then I'm going to have to make some tough decisions.
Okay. Also, you're doing this in a taxable account. Don't you have some retirement account where you could play with this so you don't have to worry about taking gains and worrying about taxes?
I do, and I could have. But again, book research is what I'm going to cash this under and say, I just wanted to try in a taxable account and see what happened.
All right.
And I'm still up.
All
right.
So, okay, next question for you. In writing the book, did you think when you started the process that investing was more mathematical or emotional?
I would say emotional just from book one, because I think everything related to money is 100% emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously math, so let's say 90%, because obviously math plays a role, but the decisions that we make are pretty much purely emotional. Very rarely are we actually rational when it comes to our money. And investing, I think, again, just almost compounds the issue in a lot of ways because it feels outside of your control.
We'll get back to our interview with Erin Lowry and building up your investing acumen in just a moment. While we go to the break, why don't you hop on to JillOnMoney.com, and there you can actually read some of the columns that we've written recently. It's so easy. JillOnMoney.com. Click on the Read tab. Lots of good stuff there. Okay, 1 minute. We'll be right back.
.401ks, IRAs, refinancing, she covers it all. Back to Jill on Money with Jill Schlesinger.
You are back. It's Jill on Money. And you know what I have to do, Mark? I have to get some pictures from that trip out to Portland. So many of you have heard me interview this guy named Chris Guillebeau. You'll hear more of that because he's just written a new book. He does this conference out in Portland, Oregon every year called the World Domination Summit. It was amazing, great and inspirational. And you're going to hear from some of the people I met there because just a bunch of really interesting folks there. And this is really a way to gather up people to figure out how to make your work life, your real life, and intersect and make that a little bit more cohesive. And one of the ways that I try to do that is to try to help people understand that a lot of the stuff in their financial lives is not as, complicated as you might make it. And one area worth exploring is this concept of risk. And so in this last segment of my interview with Erin Lowry, we have a discussion about the concept of risk and how lowering risk does not mean getting no risk. Here's more of our interview with Erin Lowry. I think that one of the misconceptions that I am consistently faced with is people really believing that a lower risk portfolio has no risk. Like, I'm diversified. How did I lose money? It's going to be interesting to see how all these younger folks who are starting to invest post-financial crisis manage the first really bad, nasty stretch. Because we've had a few dips, and they've been dramatic, but we've come back, right? So December felt really awful, but now it's 3 months, 4 months later, everyone seems like fine. So how do you think the world of robos will manage when you have a bunch of young investors freaking out?
I am hopeful that the way that robos, first of all, are usually pretty proactive about emailing you, which I have found to be a great strategy. If it's going through a correction, I would get some emails because I'm signed up for most of their newsletters. Mm-hmm. And days that we would have a bit of a dip, you would get an email that basically says, don't panic. Don't touch it. Don't panic. Leave it alone.
Right.
You planned for this, even though you don't feel like you planned for this. I also like that a few of them, when you log in, if it's gone down, there's not an angry red arrow pointing down. Where I invest, that's what it shows, which feels very aggressive and negative.
Yeah.
And I can totally understand that if you have a very low risk tolerance, that's going to trigger you to do something. And another woman that I interviewed for the book who was obviously investing during 2008, I remember her saying, I didn't check a single statement for the entire year of 2008 because I knew that I didn't want to. I wasn't going to like what I was going to see, but that I had built a portfolio that was going to weather this storm, but I needed to not take a look. And I'm hopeful that we can get that sort of mentality out to the millennials before it happens.
You know what's awesome? I just thought of like a fun cue that we should tell all these robos to do, which is on a down day, you should have a smiley face, which says buying opportunity. Okay, so what do you think of these platforms that essentially allow you to buy individual stocks for zero?
I think if you want to dabble, I totally get it. The big thing to me about those guys are the fees, because the fee is so small, seemingly, $1 or more. Sometimes it goes up to $3, depends on what you're getting. Now, I live here in New York City. $1 doesn't even pay for a load of laundry. So I totally understand that in your mind, it's like, hey, I don't have to put a lot in. Again, this idea of shaking the misconception it's only for wealthy people. I can put just a few bucks in. Great. Problem is, $1 is going to eat up all of your returns if you're only putting in a few bucks a month. My rule of thumb for that is you need to be putting between $25 and $50 per month in order to really see any sort of value. I think that it's a good addition if you want to be playing around. I don't think this should be the sole way in which you're investing.
Somebody interviewed me yesterday about some of these apps. I said, look, I have not banged on any of these apps, but this is what I need everybody to understand. Even if the cost is zero, it is essentially like going to Vegas, except you don't get a drink. Like you can go shoot craps for hours and get lots of free drinks in Vegas, which is awesome.
And it's not zero because there are expense ratios. And a lot of people don't understand that. And that's a point that I really tried to get across in the book, too.
If you have to leave the millennials with, like, you know, sort of your three big important messages around investing, what are those three lessons?
The first thing that I do want to say, and this is the only thing I would say that it's kind of unique in my book compared to some of the others, is I do come up with this concept of putting on your financial oxygen mask. And you have to have some things checked off before you can start investing. And by can, I mean should, because obviously you can go do it if you want. I can't control anything.
Right.
Biggie on those are you need to have a budget, which everyone hates that term, so let's call it a cash flow.
Let's.
How much money is coming in, how much is going out, you have to have an understanding. You have to have an emergency savings account. If you are without an emergency savings, please do not be investing your money until you've built that up.
What do you like as an emergency reserve fund?
Personally, I like at least 3 months of basic living expenses. 6 months, obviously, is the better, more conservative option, and keep working on it. But at least 3 before you even entertain investing.
Cash flow, emergency reserve.
You need to have set your goals, and that's really the first thing you should be doing. Because before you start investing, you need to know why. What is your big why? When are you going to need access to your money? And you need to have your short, medium, and long-term goals. I do not believe in putting risk on your short-term goals. I do not believe in investing your emergency fund. A bit of a controversial topic to some people, especially the millennials.
Oh, I know. That's such baloney. Boulder Dash.
I know. You need to have access to that cash.
People think this money is just like wasting away. That's what it should be doing.
Well, also, you have options for better than 0.01% savings accounts, which, kicking it back to my first book, if that's what your savings is in, you're doing it wrong. You need to be putting your money in, currently, as of this recording, that's north of 2%. You're not going to get rich off it, but that's kind of keeping pace with inflation.
Totally.
So that's good.
Absolutely.
So move your money into a better savings account for your emergency fund. Do not invest it. I also say you need to be at least current, if not paid off, on your student loans. And you have to do the math on your interest rates before you start putting risk on your money in the market.
You want us to do so much. You're so mean, Erin.
There's this very long checklist. But if you do it all, then you're putting yourself in a great position to get started. Now, of course, once you do, I would say start early if you can, be consistent, kind of that tried and true advice about investing, and make sure that you're touching base with your portfolio at least once a year. Evaluate what you're invested in. How is it performing? Do you need to make any moves?
Thanks so much to Erin Lowry. Check out her new book, Broke Millennial Takes On Investing. Good book to give to any of your recent college graduates. Really good idea. And you'll recognize a name that's in there. I'm quoted in the book. All right, check it out. Broke Millennial Takes On Investing. And when we return, we're going to get into more of your questions. It's Jill on Money, and we will be right back.
Follow Jill on Twitter and Instagram for more personal finance content. Just use the handle @JillOnMoney. Now, back to the show.
Okay, you're back with Jill on Money. Got some emails to get through this segment. I want to help these folks out. Margaret writes, what do you think of purchasing long-term care insurance with our money we have to take out at age 70 and a half, meaning her required minimum distributions? She goes, this is protecting our children from paying higher taxes when they inherit our money. Hang on. I don't get that. Okay, first of all, your kids are going to have to pay taxes if they inherit money, no matter if they inherit the retirement account. Purchasing long-term care insurance has nothing to do with that. In fact, I would have to know a lot more about you to understand whether or not long-term care insurance made sense. So if your assets are in a tax-deferred account, which means they're subject to the required minimum distribution, you take the distribution from that. You pay the tax that's due. Now the money that's left is just plain old taxable money. And your kids only have to pay a tax if they inherit that kind of money if your estate is over a very large number, like basically $22.8 million. So I think I'm missing something, or maybe you're not understanding exactly how the estate law works. Kids inherit a retirement account. They have to pull the money out. It's taxed at their tax rate at the time. Kids inherit a plain old taxable account, money that's already been taxed. Unless your estate is over a certain amount, they're not going to pay any tax. Okay? All right. Hopefully that helps. All right. Next. Best way to protect retirement funds, writes Noel. I've got money in a rollover IRA. Retirement's on the horizon. My financial advisor has informed me that it would make sense to take some funds from the rollover and put it into an immediate fixed annuity. The product will offer me protection from the volatility of the stock market and replace some of my salary. I'm not too keen on doing this. My funds will become locked in. What are the other options available to protect some of my retirement funds from the volatility of the stock market? Also, are you a fee-paid CFP? If yes, what is your fee structure? Oh, Noel, thanks a lot. She said she borrows the book from, or Noel. I don't know if it's Noel or Noel. It's either a man or a woman. I borrowed your book from the library today. It's very interesting. Go buy the book, dang it. All right, use your library. I'm good with that. I agree with you. I wouldn't want to lock up your money either. I mean, look, an immediate annuity could be great. If you had a portion, let's say you had a couple $1,000,000, it's in retirement, and you wanted to turn on the faucet and create some sort of income. There are low-cost annuities that are available out there, fixed and immediate annuities. The question is, what you are being advised to do may not be the best for you. The way that you would do something like this is just to create a portfolio that would distribute money to you every single year. That's it. It's not much more complicated than that, but maybe your advisor wouldn't make as much money if that's potentially what you're thinking about. Oh, brother. Hey, this is a cool note from Ronald, who says he's a tax return preparer. And get this, he says, I advise my clients to negotiate their financial advisor and consultancy fees since those fees are no longer tax deductible. Pretty smart. So Ronald says, hey, prior to 2018, depending on your state and income tax level, you could reduce your taxes you could reduce the advisor fees by, 24 to 39%. Come on. Anyway, he says it worked for every client who requested a fee deduction. So how about that, gang? Go and ask your advisors for fee reduction because you've lost your tax write-off. Okay, here's a question about Social Security. And this is a question that I get all the time. What does Social Security look like in the future? I heard rumblings that it's going to be insolvent. I'm turning 65. I don't know what to do. Okay, gang. Social Security, the trust fund, meaning let's go back in time. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. We put money in. That FICA tax that goes in today goes out to people who are already retired. For a long time, we had more people working than we had retirees. And so we built up a fund, like a slush fund of extra money. And now that extra money is being depleted. And so by 2034, 2035, what is now expected is that that trust fund will be depleted. Also, that the number of people working will not be enough to cover benefits that are promised to retirees at that time. That would only be available, let's say about 3/4 of the benefits would be available. But here's my answer to this overall. This is a fixable problem. It will probably be fixed in one of three ways. One is we'll raise the Social Security wage base, the amount of money on which you pay Social Security taxes. Two, they'll increase the retirement age, right? And three, they could increase the FICA tax rate, both for just a little bit. So some combination of those three, I think the problem will get fixed. I think Social Security is an important issue. People rely on it. And guess what? People who rely on Social Security also tend to be people who vote. And so this will become a political issue. It will be a lot of grousing about it. Why should my taxes go up? Oh, I don't want to do this. You know what? It's going to happen, I think. So I wouldn't worry too much. Certainly if I were 65, I wouldn't worry because I think you're going to get the benefits that have been promised to you. Okay? Hope that helps. All right. During the break, why don't you go to JillOnMoney.com and you can sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Mark puts it together every single week, and it's darn good. All right. Free weekly newsletter at JillOnMoney.com. We will be right back. You're back. It's Jill on Money. Before we close out the program, we've got a good question here from Cheryl, who is 59 years old. She says she was gifted $50,000. Hey, that's a nice gift. Question, should I pay off mortgage, which has a principal balance of $25,000, or invest in other ways? Current interest rate on the mortgage, 5.625%. There is no other debt. I am concerned about money available for retirement. Financial planner estimates if all goes as planned, which life never does, when I retire at age 67, I should have enough with Social Security and my money from my IRA to live until 93. Family has even longer longevity. No long-term care plan currently. Value your advice. Thank you. I mean, 59, you're young, so I get that. But here's the thing. The mortgage interest rate is pretty hefty, 5.625%. And by the way, you say it's a principal balance, meaning there's no more interest that you're deducting. Therefore, I would pay off. I would take half of the 50, pay off the principal balance, and use the other 25 as a either emergency reserve fund or just add to your liquidity. So I think that's what I would do. Because remember, let's say you were just putting the whole bunch of money in an investment account and you were trying to earn 5.625% with no risk. You couldn't do it, right? Because there's always risk. I mean, the closest you get for no risk is you could buy a 10-year treasury, which is going to get you, 2.5%. So if you're going to get more than twice that by paying off that principal balance, I'm a fan. I really am a fan. So that's what I would do. Let me know what your advisor thinks. Well, that's it. That's the show. We have been broadcasting live from the Policy Genius studios here in New York. Policy Genius is the easy way to compare and buy insurance. Go check out policygenius.com. It's Jill on Money. If you've got questions, send us an email. Ask Jill at jillonmoney.com. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next weekend.